Hey everyone, thank you for stopping by my channel today. If you are new here, my name is Kim and I am a recently retired elementary school teacher, still working part-time here in Yokohama, Japan. It's early evening and I was just kind of thinking of topics and things to chat about because I just felt like chatting today. I finished work earlier this afternoon and I thought, okay, Valentine's Day is coming up. It's in another week? I can't see my calendar. It's in about a week. And I thought, I'm going to share some stories with you with the hopes that maybe you won't make the same mistakes I did, or maybe you will, and find out that sometimes things aren't as bad as they seem, and sometimes life will throw you these curveballs or bad relationships or relationships that don't work out for a reason that maybe not known to you at the time, but will be revealed perhaps down the road. So my first story, I thought, would be, why did I come to Japan on the JET program to teach? Now, I know many of you are going through your interviews right now. Maybe some of you are deciding whether or not it's a program that you'd like to come on to work in Japan. Maybe some of you are currently on the JET program, or maybe some of you did not get on the JET program, but you still are interested in coming to Japan. I'm sure everybody has their own reasons why they want to come to Japan and work, or why they want to come specifically on the JET program, or why they want to be an English teacher here in Japan. Believe it or not, none of the reasons that you would assume that people are coming here to Japan for were the reasons that I came. Sorry, that sentence was probably grammatically incorrect. I was just kind of thinking about it, but yeah, I think many of you would probably be shocked at my story as to how I got here. And once again, I never expected to stay here for the past 37 years that I've been here. I came to Japan in 1988 and have been here ever since. So how did that happen? At the time, the JET program was only in its second year of existence, and I had never heard of it. I was unfamiliar that there was such a thing. I think at the beginning it was actually called something else, and it started originally with people from the UK and the US. I don't know about Australia, but it was just a very small program at the time. So let's rewind in time. A long time ago, 37 years. I know many of you were probably not even conceived, and maybe even your parents were not even conceived yet. But yeah, let's go back to 1988. Actually, maybe even 1987. At the time, I was working as an elementary school teacher in Los Angeles, very happily, I might say. I loved my school, I loved my colleagues, I loved my students, I loved the area that I worked in, and I never had dreams of working abroad or teaching abroad. I did have dreams of traveling, especially to Japan, since that's where obviously my ancestors are from. My parents had went to Japan on their 25th anniversary, but as a family, we never went together as a family to Japan. And to me, I always had that interest of going, but if you are a teacher just starting out, and maybe even just someone starting off on your own, you don't really have, well, at least I didn't have the funds to go traveling, especially international traveling. The only places I had been out of the country were Mexico and Canada, but I had never been to any other part of Asia or any part of Europe. At the time, I was 22 years old, 29 years old. So I was working happily, and if you all remember, there was an earthquake in 1987 in Los Angeles. Not a humongous one, but a big enough one that I remember work, it wasn't canceled, but we had come to school, and the people that were able to come to school that day came, and I happened to get into a conversation with someone that was at our school, and we were talking about the earthquake and just small talk, and this gentleman said that he was kind of sorry, this is Bandit's signature pose. He had said that he wasn't really afraid of earthquakes because in Japan they had a lot of earthquakes. Now, I had no idea that this gentleman had spent time in Japan or whatever. It was just a small talk conversation that you would do with anyone in a crowd or in a group situation. And we started talking more and more. And of course, anything that had to do with Japan was an interesting topic. And so I was asked out to dinner, and I accepted the invitation. And yeah, went on this date out to dinner. And we went to a sushi restaurant. Now, even though I'm Japanese, I really didn't eat sushi all that much. I think the only sushi I was familiar with was basically inari sushi, which we used to call football sushis, because it was just the wrapping with the rice inside, and maki sushi, which is the rolled sushi. At that time, I don't even think we had California rolls. I think all that became popular later. But I had never went to an actual sushi restaurant or sushi bar where the sushi chef prepares everything in front of you. My family and I had went to Japanese restaurants, but yeah, so this was kind of a first for me. As a child, I went to Japanese school on Saturdays, so I was familiar a little bit with the language, but definitely not fluent. Definitely not fluent enough to even carry on any sort of conversation in Japanese, except for maybe the phrase, which do you like better, an apple or a pear, or just something very simple like that. My brother always used to tease me about that. And here this man was speaking in fluent Japanese to the sushi chef, ordering everything for us. And I was like, wow, hey, this is pretty cool. And so it was nice. It's always, and as you all know, when you're out on a first date or when you're going out with someone for the first time out to dinner, you ask a lot of questions, you share a lot about yourself, so you are really getting to know the other person. It's when I was getting dropped off and we were driving in his car. He played music in his car, and he put a song on that I recognized because at the time I took dancing lessons. I shouldn't say lessons. I went to a dance studio for exercise, and this song was pretty popular. It was one of the songs that a lot of teachers used to work out with, and I recognized it, didn't think anything of it because it was just a song playing, in the background. And he started singing it, and he said, do you know the song? And I said, yeah, one of the teachers at my dance studio uses it a lot for warm-ups. And he started singing it, and I'm like, wow, you're really good. You sound just like the person. And he said, well, yeah, I am this person. This is my band's song. And blown away because, of course, I didn't put two and two together. And yeah, I knew the band. I was very, very familiar with the band, but I didn't know the members' names or anything, details like that. And he shared with me information about his brothers and his family. And, of course, I knew a lot of the names he mentioned, because at that particular time, I think most young people would be familiar with the band, these musicians, as well as the athletes that this person was related to. So, to make a long story short, we did develop into a relationship. I didn't think of it as anything like a marriage-bound relationship or anything like that. It was just, at the time, we were having a good time, and especially, it was just kind of a different, I don't want to say world for me, but it was just a different, totally different background of people that I had been out with before. I had been out with aspiring actors, and I don't want to say blame it. It's because of the area I worked in. I worked in an area that was a big entertainment area, where most of the people that I was meeting or that were at the places that I was either working at or visiting were all somehow involved in entertainment. As we started becoming closer, I'm skipping a lot of parts just for privacy reasons and just to spare you all the details. But there was a time when this person had said that in a few months he was going to Japan to work on this movie. And, you know, he had shared some of the movies that he was in. So at that time, right, we didn't have the internet. So if I wanted to see the movies, I had to go to the video rental store and rent these movies. Okay, Bandit. So he was saying how he had this movie deal with Japan, and wouldn't it be great if I could come along? And I said, right, I had never been to Japan before. And he's like, well, you know, we should go together and da-da-da-da. And I started thinking, yeah, that would be kind of cool. But, you know, of course, didn't have the money. Where was I going to get that? And I wasn't going to just up and leave my school, right? So a bunch of incidents happened where I wasn't questioning the relationship, but I thought, what am I doing? If I really, truly want to be with this person, then I'm not going to do the long distance thing. If he were to go to Japan, then that would probably be the end of the relationship. And at the time, I thought, you know, maybe this would be a good time to try something different and maybe go and see a different side of life or whatever, right? And I was looking at the Japanese newspaper, which my parents subscribed to. It's called the Rafushimpo, and it has an English section, and just by chance, I looked and it had an advertisement for the JET program, and right, how to get your application, what it involved, da-da-da. And in my head, my lovesick, love is blind head, I thought, this is a sign. This is a sign. It's telling me that I can continue the relationship if I go to Japan and work, because then I am actually working in a job that I love, which is teaching, and I can still keep the relationship going strong, right? Sounds like a win-win. So I applied, I got my application in, I did everything I needed to, but of course I didn't know if I was going to get in or not. And right, what's the point of getting all excited if for some reason I didn't get accepted? Well, before the announcement of whether or not you get accepted, or even I think even before the interview part was announced, I had said, you know, because he kept saying, oh, I wish you could come to Japan, or it'd be so nice if you could come to Japan with me, blah, blah, blah. I said, guess what? I have a way that I can go to Japan and work. And I told him about the JET program, and I said, they're looking for teachers to teach English. I'm sure I have a good chance because I am a credentialed teacher, which I found out now that it doesn't matter if you're a credentialed teacher or not to get on the JET program. And I thought the reaction would be, oh my gosh, that's great, or oh wow, I really hope you get in. And the reaction I got was totally the opposite. It was like, there's no way you're going to survive in Japan. You've never been there before. Like, how are you going to live there if you've never even been to Japan? I was like, well, I thought you wanted me to come to Japan, and I didn't want to just come without having anything to do. So I found this way I can work in Japan, and then, right, we could be together. Silly me. So he said, no, you can't go. There's no way you're going to survive. And then I started putting, I started putting some things together. And I thought, I wonder if his Japan deal isn't really true. I wonder if this was a story to, I don't know, to see how much or how strong the relationship was. I don't know. I thought a million things. And I just thought he would be happy. And I started questioning different things. Like all of a sudden, it's like, you know, that point in a relationship when all of a sudden, red flag, red flag, red flag, red flag, red, and all of a sudden they just started popping up. And I was like, okay. So I had to do a little bit of thinking, and I thought, you know what? I don't care if the relationship breaks up. In my own mind, I thought, I really do want to go to Japan. I really do want to teach over there. I really do want to experience life in a foreign country. And if you're not coming along, or if this whole Japan movie deal was a lie, then so be it. I'm still going to go to Japan if I get accepted. Well, from that moment, things really started to go downhill. The more and more things I uncovered, just kind of by accident, the more I realized that everything, like everything, was not as I guess I thought it was, or I believed it to be. I'm almost a little bit embarrassed to say this, but man, the things you learn in your 20s, especially anything having to do with a relationship, these are things that life lessons. And so during the time when things were happy, he was in a situation which he needed to borrow some money. And because I felt everything was in place, I gave him the money. But we did it we didn't do it with a formal loan thing, like where you sign the paper, but I did have my bases covered, because I think once you've been burned before, and I had been burned before, I think you kind of know what to do to protect yourself, which I did. Should it ever go to court, or should I ever have to get reimbursed, I had all the proof that I needed, right? So as soon as it came to that point where I just basically said, look, We need to end this. Let's solve everything. Let's get this all taken care of and go our separate ways. Then he disappeared. I had left messages, but everything had been like disconnected. I thought in my head, all right, well, do I kiss this money goodbye? Or do I try and get it back? What do I do? Because in my head, I already knew that I wanted to go through with this Japan thing, but at the same time, I was out this money, and I thought, you know, I'm entitled to get it back, and I have the proof I need right here. But just because you have proof and just because you have all these papers and documents doesn't mean you're necessarily going to get the money if this person is nowhere to be found. So I had confided with a few of my colleagues and shared my story, and one of my colleagues' husband was a police officer and had references for private investigators, and of course they wanted to help me. So I met with a private investigation company, and it wasn't a shock, but it was sort of like a oh my gosh moment, because the minute I said this person's name, I was not the only one. I was not the only one involved in some sort of financial situation with this person. This person was not only trying to run away from me, but other people as well. So, private investigators are pretty interesting people because they develop ways to figure out how to serve someone if they need to go to court. And yeah, so we'll cut to I guess we'll fast forward to maybe it was the beginning of 1988, right? And I still hadn't told my parents anything. I didn't tell them that I had applied for the JET program. I didn't tell them that I was thinking of going to Japan. And it came to that time where I needed to tell them what was going on. And I believe that was the year, I can't remember whether it was my aunt or my uncle had passed away. And I had just received, I think I received my results that I had made it to the interview and that I had gotten accepted to the JET program. And so told my parents, it was I think at the memorial service, and of course they were super excited, super happy. I said it was only going to be for a year, and I think they were really proud because I was going to Japan. I was going to the motherland country. And then I told them that I was also involved in this court case, and I needed to go to small claims court for this reason, or whatever. And they weren't mad or they weren't upset, but I think they were, of course, a little bit concerned and worried, and I said I had everything under control. So yeah, so they kind of didn't say anything. A couple of weeks before my court date, I got a call from the People's Court on TV. I don't know if it's still on. I know some of you may be familiar with Judge Judy, but before Judge Judy, there was the People's Court with, I think it was Judge Wapner. They had asked if I was interested in going on People's Court. They explained to me how I would have to present my case and do all that, but regardless of whether I won or lost my case, I would still be awarded the amount of money that I was asking for. And it wouldn't come from the person I was seeking the money from. It was just, I can't remember all the details. So it was whether or not I wanted to go, and then, of course, whether or not the other party would also want to go to court. And the advantage, I guess, is if the other party wanted to go on people's court, they wouldn't have to pay back the money to me because the show would reimburse us the money or something like that. And I thought, okay, wait. Number one, this guy is, he's been in acting, and so he may relish the TV time. But for someone like me, I thought, I wouldn't have minded. But out of respect for my parents and the people that know me, I know my family would not like having me going on a show to get money in a court case situation. Game shows are a different story. But yeah, there's no way my mom or my dad probably would have approved of that. And, when you think about it too, yeah, I probably don't want to be on the show. I have no idea what kind of questions would come up. And so I said, oh, no, that's okay. When it came time for my small claims court, I had I gathered all the proof I needed. I had audio tapes, I had phone message tapes, I had documents, I had everything that I needed to, and I was all prepared to present my case. He didn't show up, went there. The judge didn't even take a look at any of the things I had prepared, just looked at the case and awarded me the money. So I was happy, but it's another question whether or not you're going to get the money, because they have, I think, 30 days, or they had some time to appeal. And just because you might win the case, they might not have the funds to pay you back, right? Well, I thought, okay, that was my lesson learned in life. I'm not going to expect the money. If I get it, I get it. If I don't, I don't. And the people, or the private investigator and the people that were trying to help me, said, do you have any information or anything about any of his accounts, any addresses, any kind of thing that we could connect? Because if we can connect, we can get you the money. But if we can't get any kind of connection, you'll probably have to kiss the money goodbye. I didn't have any, but actually I saved a note. I saved a note that was written to me, and it was just like a memo note and left on my desk at school. And the note was on the back of what do you call those, deposit slips from a checking account. Moral of the story, don't ever write a message or a note on the back of a deposit slip. So I went to Japan. I left, I found out in May, went to Japan in July, and I can't remember how long it was ago after that the money was transferred into my account, and that was that. That's the whole reason why I went on the JET program, because I thought I was going to be with somebody that I thought wanted to be with me and wanted to keep the relationship alive. And that just all snowballed into, finding out that everything was not as what it seemed to be. And my first court experience, my first going through a private investigation experience, and going to a country I really didn't know much about, but packing up and, yeah, coming to Japan. To me, that was a sign, like, this is your sign to leave Los Angeles, leave the life you've been leading behind, and do something on your own. Try something on your own and get to know who you are. And the only thing I had 100% absolute confidence in was my career, was my teaching background, and going in knowing that I was getting this opportunity to teach in a foreign country, even though it was extremely challenging because it was so different than elementary school teaching. And that's a whole nother video to explain what happened back then, which I'll share at another time. But I dare say that many of you will have those crossroads where you might have to choose between love or relationships and your career, or you might have to choose between this A life and B life, getting married, staying single, living abroad, whatever. I know some of you will make choices with your head and do what is best for you in terms of maybe just your aspirations or your goals for your future. And some of you will do things like I did, doing it or making your decision based on your heart. And even though sometimes thinking with your heart and making a choice with your heart might not always be the best decision, or it might not be the safest decision, I don't think it's a wrong decision. I don't think if you've done something because it's what you felt was the right thing to do, or the right thing to do at the time, or because it involved love in some aspect of another, I don't think it's wrong. And even though for me that relationship was very wrong, and I got out safely, and I learned a zillion lessons, it presented me with an opportunity that changed my life. And had it not have been for that relationship, would I have even heard about the JET program? Would I even have had the courage or taken the steps to leave my wonderful teaching career in Los Angeles behind to come and do this? I don't know. Anyways, that was the whole reason I came to Japan on the JET program, and absolutely no regrets whatsoever of the way things turned out, because here I am 37 years later, hopefully a little wiser, and I can look back and smile about things. All right. Stay tuned for other story times. If you had similar experiences, or maybe you're at a crossroads in your life now, or maybe you have something you'd like to share, please feel free to write them in the comments, because I think we all learn from each other by sharing stories and letting people know you're not alone. You're not alone when you have these crazy things happen to you, or these decisions you have to make. Thank you for listening to my story, and I will see you in the next video. Thank you. Bye.